Hi guys, how are you? Welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into the story of Resident Evil 5, a version that takes us back to the past in some ways and reveals a few new things to us. Let's get started, but before that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, it really helps us out. Thanks a lot. This game has a DLC called Lost in Nightmares, which takes place 3 years before the events of the main story. To better understand the story, it's a good idea to check that out first. The year is 2006. A series of reports reaches the BSAA team, helping them locate the hideout of one of Umbrella Corporation's most powerful figures. A man so old he's practically turned into a fossil, Oswald E. Spencer. I honestly have no idea how this ancient man managed to live this long. Well, he's at the end of his life now, and we'll see that together. Chris and Jill, hoping to capture the old man and find a lead on Albert Wesker, accept this mission. They make their way to Spencer's mansion. And like other mansions in the Resident Evil series, this one is strangely empty. Just as they begin searching the mansion, they come across a bunch of men in suits, blood splattered wildly all over the walls. They were probably Spencer's bodyguards. It's not clear what kind of creature was responsible for this. As usual, Chris and Jill, after solving a few puzzles and heading down to the basement, finally reach Spencer's main room. And guess what? Look who's here. Yep, that corpse lying on the floor is our very own Spencer. Seems like Wesker got here before us and finished him off. We'll learn how this happened a bit later. And this was the moment when we lost two of Resident Evil's main characters, Jill Valentine and Albert Wesker. Of course, their bodies were never found. After several days of searching around the mansion, the BIC declared them both dead. Alright, that's the end of the DLC story. Now let's get to the main event, or better yet, let's jump 3 years ahead. The year is 2009, 6 years after the fall of the Umbrella Corporation and 11 years after the destruction of Raccoon City. The BSAA sends the beloved Chris Redfield to investigate a series of reports regarding the sale of bioweapons in the city of Kajuju, West Africa. You know how it is, wherever there's talk of bioweapons, Chris is always right there. Before we go any further, let's properly get to know the BSAA, since this organization plays a big role in the story. The BSAA is an anti-terrorism agency, and if we want to trace its roots, we have to go back to Resident Evil 3. After what happened in Raccoon City and the court ruling issued against Umbrella, the company went bankrupt. You could say the BSAA was born right around that time. Back then, governments didn't take them seriously, they wouldn't fund them, or would even blacklist them. At first, the number of BSAA members was very small, but gradually, as the use of bioweapons increased around the world and more innocent people died, more members joined the organization. In short, this group is made up of people who came together with one goal: to wipe out every last bioweapon in existence. Let's get back to the story. Before sending Chris, the BSAA had already deployed their Alpha team to the area to track down a bioweapons dealer named Ricardo Irving. Chris arrives in the city, and wow, what a start. The game introduces its new characters right away. This lady is Sheva Alomar, our new partner. After a brief introduction, Sheva mentions that the locals have been acting really strange lately, especially toward Americans, so it'd be better if she accompanies Chris through the town.
na wasaliti wote walete kwa wenye mamlaka. Ukipata
They head over to their mission handler to get the location of Alpha Team. While talking, the handler suddenly asks Chris and Sheva, "Do you know anything about Ouroboros?"
Mostly just rumors. Something about visions of a doomsday project.
Doomsday sounds about right, and apparently it is no rumor.
They leave the house to meet up with Alpha Team, but on the way, they see two men force-feeding something disturbing to another man. What you just saw is the next version of the Plaga parasite. The Plaga parasite we saw in Resident Evil 4 has been combined with leech DNA by someone, creating Plaga Type 2. After taking down a fat zombie, things suddenly escalate. The whole townspeople turn savage and start coming after Chris and Sheva. The people infected with Plaga Type 2 or Type 3 are called Magini. This name comes from the word Genie, referring to evil spirits. In the previous game, we saw something similar with the villagers. Remember the Ganados? Those who carried Plaga Type 1.
Wanaozuia njia ya paradiso, mwisho wao ni jehanamu.
You don't know what you're talking about! You can all go to hell!
Wait a minute. That's the...
Kifo kwa wote wanaotuzuia. Hapo ndani wawe wote, wacha wawe toleo ya damu ya njia zetu. Wawe!
They make it to a safe spot and realize that the overweight guy giving orders up there is basically like one of our own extremist militia leaders. After buying several Plaga parasites from Irving and implanting them in the bodies of Kajuja's townsfolk, he's taken control of the city and started issuing his own decrees. Remember, once these parasites enter a person's body, they become obedient to those linked to the Plaga. In Resident Evil 4, this was handled poorly. People just walked around like lifeless puppets. That's why whoever is behind this now has created Plaga Type 2 and Type 3, making the infected much more effective both physically and mentally. If you recall, at the start of the game, the townspeople were going about their daily lives normally, until this extremist gave an order, and they all turned savage. Anyway, enough of that, let's keep going. As you can see, the situation's getting worse. Chris and Sheva continue their mission to locate Alpha Team. They find the team's lone survivor, the captain. Chris asks him, "Who did this to you?" And he replies, "Something attacked us, and then that bastard Irving escaped." The captain hands over some intel in the form of a hard drive to Chris and tells him, "Get this to HQ." They set out to capture Irving, but on the way, that same creature that attacked Alpha Team shows up. What a monster, the late captain wasn't lying. They eventually managed to kill the thing, and and press on. Chris and Sheva head toward their rendezvous point with Delta Team to capture Irving together. On the way, they spot a BSAA helicopter coming in to assist, but it crashes and explodes. Command orders all nearby units to head to the crash site immediately. So Chris and Sheva go to check out what happened. This man you're seeing is Josh Stone, the captain of Delta Team. Apparently, Sheva knows Josh as well, since she was trained under him in the past. Josh tells them they need to find Irving. They tracked him as far as the area near the mines, so he must be around there. Then, Josh hands Chris a memory card. And damn, Jill Valentine. She's back. The plot's getting more and more suspicious. Let's keep going and see who's really behind all this. After killing a bunch of Magini, Chris and Sheva finally catch up to Irving. At first, the guy starts boasting, saying, "I'm gonna fix everything." But mid-sentence, that mysterious figure appears, and the two of them flee together. This masked person is extremely suspicious. We have to find out who it is as soon as possible. Chris notices a file on the table and realizes that Irving is heading toward an oil refinery. He quickly reports it to Delta Team, and they agree to send someone to pick up Chris and Sheva so they can regroup with the rest of the team and head to the refinery together. But little did we know that sneaky Irving had arranged for a creature to be brought in to block our way. A mutated bat called Papa Caramel. But he made a mistake. Chris, the king himself, has dealt with far worse than this. This thing's nothing but a joke. The teammate meant to pick us up arrives, and we set off to join the rest of Delta Team. Of course, getting there isn't easy. Honestly, when is it ever? After pushing through a ton of trouble, they finally reach the rendezvous point with Delta Team, but it seems like they're too late. All the members of Delta Team are dead. Hey, those giant monsters were in Resident Evil 4 too. Seriously though, Why does this ugly thing have a Spanish name? Whatever, just die already. Chris and Sheva kill the beast. Then Sheva starts checking the dog tags of the team members, looking for Josh. It seems like Josh has also been killed. Chris and Sheva head toward the oil refinery. On the way, Chris tells Sheva about what happened 3 years ago, meaning that DLC we covered at the start of the story. Then he says, I should have known she was still alive. And if I ever doubted it, seeing that photo confirmed it. Chris has this frustrating line about Jill. Every time he talks to someone, he's like, we were partners. Man, just say you love her already. Why are you torturing yourself and all of us like this? Chris then asks Sheva what her reason was for joining the BSAA. Turns out Umbrella had conducted some of its bioweapons experiments on the people of Africa. Sheva's family got caught up in all that and were killed. She says all those evil people who had a hand in what happened to her family need to. Chris and Sheva arrive at camps that serve as the home of the native Ndapaya people. Ndapaya? That name might ring a bell. Remember Resident Evil 0? We had run-ins with locals back then too. But let's move forward. Everything will soon become much clearer. Now let's take a moment to acknowledge just how vile Irving truly is. This maniac introduced the Plagas parasite into the bodies of these poor villagers, all under the guise of a vaccine for a deadly disease that didn't even exist. Imagine if everyone lined up for a COVID shot and then we all turned into zombies. That's the level of deception we're dealing with. On their way, Chris and Sheva come across something strange, tents belonging to a company named Tricell. You might not be familiar with the name, so here's a quick rundown. Tricell operates in various fields like oil and gas extraction, the trade of rare animal and plant specimens, and most notably pharmaceuticals. Like Umbrella back in the day, Tricell has made a name for itself in the medical world. But its past isn't exactly clean. For instance, it was one of the major suppliers of chemical materials to Umbrella. After the Raccoon City incident, when Umbrella's corruption was exposed and people saw what kind of horrors had been hidden behind the facade of a pharmaceutical empire, it wasn't just Umbrella that went up in flames. Tricell and a few other companies found themselves caught in the heat too. At that time, Tricell realized things were getting dangerously out of hand. So they came up with a strategy: win back the trust of governments and the public. Their way of doing that was by publicly supporting the BSA, so much so that they became one of its key backers. At first, it seemed like Tricell had learned from Umbrella's downfall and genuinely wanted to change. But now it's looking like they're still neck-deep in bioweapons and shady operations. Which begs the question, why is Tricell even here? Well, maybe we'll find out soon enough. Eventually, Chris and Sheva reach the refinery and discover that Josh is still alive. He's clearly shaken and tells them, we don't stand a chance against these people. Chris, always holding on to the thought of Jill, brings her up once more, and right then, a horde of Magini attacks. Somehow, they manage to escape after a tough fight. Josh informs them that Irving is planning to blow the place up to cover his escape. It's not too late, he says. We have to catch him before he gets away.
Tell me what you're planning to do.
Damn it, fella! I guess I wasn't worth the good stuff.
Excella.
Where is this facility? Answer me. What is the Ouroboros project?
BSAA! Wow, you two are just on top of everything, aren't you? The balance of the world is changing and you're completely oblivious to it.
What's changing? What are you talking about? Is it the Ouroboros project? Is that it?
No one can stop it. Ouroboros is about to change everything we've ever come to know. Chris! You're Chris.
What's so funny? How do you know about me?
All your answers are wait ahead, Chris. In that cave. If you can survive long enough to get them.
But one question lingers. How did Irving even know who Chris was? The answer: Excella. Who is she exactly? It's clear Irving had a lot of inside knowledge, but he's dead now. So what does it matter? Chris and Sheva head toward the cave Irving mentioned, where they spot the mysterious woman's boat. Josh drops them off and says, "Take care of yourselves. Don't die." Then he leaves. As they walk through the cave, Sheva tells Chris she's heard of Excella. She's the director of Tricell Africa. But how she's connected to Irving, she doesn't know. A bit further in, they encounter more Ndapaya natives. Let me tell you something mind-blowing about this cave. This is the exact place where James Marcus came about 50 years ago in search of a rare flower, the same one introduced in Resident Evil 0. That flower became the source of the progenitor virus. The statues and carvings on the walls are all remnants of the ancient Ndapaya civilization. And right at this moment, the game gives us one of its most exciting cutscenes.
The preparations are almost complete. Then we can leave.
Good.
You know, I was surprised Las Plagas was such a success. When you first arrived, I had my doubts. And now Ouroboros is complete.
Your position at Tricell is secured.
Oh, I have my eyes set on something much bigger. You'll be needing a partner, right? Someone suitable to join you in your new world? I believe I've proven I'm worthy, haven't I?
Perhaps you have.
It appears your old friend, Chris Redfield, has come to pay you a visit. Do I sense concern?
The plan is in its final stages. I will not tolerate delays.
New superior breed creating a new world. Genital virus. I was to become a god.
That right is now mine. I believe I should thank you, Spencer.
And now we learn the truth. Albert Wesker is alive. Let's start with that elegant lady we just saw, Excella Gion, the head of Tricell's African branch. From what we've seen and heard so far, it's clear that she and Wesker have been working together since the time of the Plagas incident back in Resident Evil 4. It turns out they were behind the development of both Type 2 and Type 3 Plagas. And now they've set their sights on something even more dangerous, a virus called Ouroboros, which they plan to unleash upon the entire world. Looks like the rumors were true. This virus actually exists. Designed by Albert Wesker, Ouroboros is based on the progenitor virus. While the project officially began in 2006, its roots go back even further, long before the events of that DLC I mentioned earlier. Oswell E. Spencer and Albert Wesker, driven by a twisted ideology to evolve humanity, spent years pondering one question: what's stopping the human race from reaching its full potential? Their answer: humanity itself. So they came up with a horrifying solution: release a virus into Earth's atmosphere that acts as a filter. Any human whose body can't adapt to the virus is deemed unworthy and dies. Only those with rare genetic traits will survive. From that small pool of evolved humans, they believe they could build a perfect society. But here's the catch: most people can't withstand the virus and end up dead. The few who do survive gain enhanced strength and speed, almost superhuman abilities. Anyway, let's take a break from the sick philosophies of these maniacs and get back to the story. After solving a few puzzles, Chris and Sheva arrive at the Sun Garden. Yep, that's right, the same place we saw back in Resident Evil 0. This is where the stairway to the sunflowers grow, the original source of the progenitor virus. When Chris sees Umbrella's equipment scattered around, he realizes no one's touched this place in years. But wait, Tricell tints are here too. So clearly something's been going on. As we've already learned, Wesker and Tricell are working together. It seems their people came here, took over Umbrella's long-abandoned laboratories, and used the progenitor virus as the foundation for Wesker's Ouroboros project. A lot of our questions are finally being answered. But seriously, where the hell is Jill Valentine? Let's stay patient and keep moving forward. After fighting off a few lickers, Chris and Sheva reach a strange area.
What the hell?
This was in the pictures, too.
Wait, that means Jill might be here.
What have they done?
Jill. There's so many. They must be kidnapping people from all over the world to experiment on. Damn it! Where is she?
Mr. Redfield, how nice to finally make your acquaintance.
Who the hell are you?
Excelligiona. She works with Tricell,
Nice. You've done your homework.
an officer in the Global Pharmaceutical Consortium. Why?
As if I need to explain myself to you. Although, weren't you two given orders to retreat?
So it was you.
Where is Jill?
Jill, even if I did know, you think I would tell you?
Cut the crap! Tell me where she is!
As soon as you two are done with your little vigilante mission, you should leave. There's nothing here worth throwing your lives away for.
She's lying. She knows something.
It's time we get some answers.
Chris and Sheva finally track down that crazy woman, Xella. But there's a problem. A bald man shows up, and as we all know from real life, bald men can be seriously dangerous. Joking aside, this one is especially wild. Remember how I said not all bodies can accept the virus? Well, this guy is a perfect example. His body rejected the virus, and he mutated into something monstrous. After a brutal fight, Chris and Sheva take him down and continue their search for Xella. They push onward into the ruins of the Nepaya civilization and finally corner Xella. Just as she starts rambling about Jill, the masked woman suddenly shows up and beats them down hard. then his voice. The king returns. Albert Wesker himself.
You are alive.
This is Wesker.
We last met at the Spencer estate, wasn't it? Well, isn't this one big family reunion? I would expect you to be happier to see us.
Us?
So slow to catch on.
Chris gets emotional when he sees her and tries to speak to her, but something's clearly wrong. Wesker has her under his control. Then Wesker declares, "Let's end this once and for all. 2 versus 2 fair and square. This guy can wipe out armies on his own and has injected himself 1 billion times with every kind of virus out there. And he's talking about fairness? While they're busy fighting, let me tell you something amazing about Albert Wesker's past. Not much is known about his childhood. Not even Albert Wesker is his real name. Oswald Spencer took him from his family at a young age and raised him himself. The reason he was given the name Wesker is that before Umbrella was even founded, Spencer launched a secret project called the Wesker Project. The idea was to take a group of elite children and infect them with a progenitor virus in a very controlled way, giving them enhanced abilities and conditioning them with a specific ideology, an ideology that claimed humanity is a dead-end species. It needs order, liberation, and rebirth. The children who survived the project were given the surname Wesker as a symbol of their success. Albert stood out from the others due to his extreme ambition and intellect. He quickly became one of Spencer's most trusted subjects. By the age of 17, he had earned a PhD in virology. Insane, right? When Umbrella was established, Wesker joined the company and became one of Dr. James Marcus's top protégés. He worked there for years, leading up to the events of Resident Evil 0. But let's not get sidetracked. Back to the present. Wesker defeats Chris and says, "After all this time, I expected more from you. You disappoint me." Then his phone rings, and he starts to walk away. Chris and Sheva try to stop him, but suddenly Jill jumps in and attacks them again. Chris tries once more to reach her, and this time it works. He manages to snap Jill out of Wesker's control. You might be wondering, how is she able to resist it both mentally and physically? Before leaving, Wesker says, "Playtime's over. I've got work to do." The device stuck to Jill's chest is called the P30. It contains a liquid chemical compound that, when introduced into the body, drastically boosts strength and speed. But it's temporary. Once the dose wears off, the effects vanish completely. And guess what? This chemical is also based on the progenitor virus. In the Resident Evil universe, everything comes back to this one virus. If James Marcus had just kept his mouth shut and stopped chasing scientific glory, none of this would have happened. But anyway, let's keep going. Chris and Sheva finally managed to separate the device.
Are you alright?
Chris. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
You're Sheva, right?
Yes.
I couldn't control my actions. Oh, but God, I was still aware. Oh, forgive me.
It's all right.
Thank you. Listen, I'm gonna be all right. You do need to stop him.
We can't just leave you here.
You have to. This is your only chance. If Wesker succeeds, Ouroboros will be spread across the globe. Millions will die.
Oh, yeah, but...
I'm all right. You need to stop him. Chris, you're the only one who can. Before it's too late. Don't you trust your partner?
All right.
Take care.
care of him. You're our only hope to survive this.
Now, quick side note, there's a DLC for this game called Desperate Escape, which shows what happens to Jill from this point to the end of the game. Nothing too crazy happens, just know that she eventually makes her way to the finale and shows up with a helicopter to help Chris and Sheva. Anyway, back to the story. Chris and Sheva board the ship. After wandering around for a bit and fighting through waves of zombies, they finally come face to face with none other than the most respectable woman in the world, Excella. As usual, she starts rambling nonsense and then tries to escape with 2 stylish Samsonite suitcases. But nope, doesn't go as planned. One of them slips out of her hand. We see some serum vials inside, and it's pretty obvious they were super important to her. Now we hit a major cutscene. A really important one.
Given birth by the progenitor virus, the Wesker children were entrusted with endless potential. Of them, only one survived. You.
Are you saying I was manufactured?
I was to become a god. Creating a new world with an advanced race of human beings. However, all was lost with Raccoon City. Despite that setback, your creation still holds great significance. Now my candle burns dimly. Ironic, isn't it? For one who has the right to be a god. To face his own mortality.
The right to be a god. That right is now mine. The right to be a god. You. Arrogant even until the end. Only one truly capable of being a god deserves that right. The right. With Ouroboros, I have that right.
It flashes back to that night at the Spencer mansion. Remember that line from Spencer to Wesker? You are the last remaining Wesker child. That moment is going to matter later. But for now, back to Chris and Sheva, who are getting closer and closer to the end of their journey. On their way, they run into Excella again, but something's gone horribly wrong. She's been infected with Ouroboros. Honestly, Excella was a fool to think Wesker would ever consider her a real partner. A guy who sacrifices his own friends and allies for power? He doesn't care about anyone but himself. Her body clearly can't handle the virus. She's rotting from the inside, and that once high-class lady turns into a hideous monster. Chris and Sheva end up using a satellite weapon to blow her mutated form to pieces. Right after that, they head into one of the control rooms on the ship and spot Wesker on the security monitors. He's prepping a bomber aircraft, getting ready to take off and spread Ouroboros into Earth's atmosphere. Just then, Jill calls Chris and tells him that Wesker's superhuman abilities come from a virus that's extremely unstable. He has to regularly inject himself with a serum to keep it in check. Jill says, according to Excella, the dosage has to be super precise. If he gets too much, it'll work like a poison and destroy him. Those serums that fell from Excella's case? Yeah, that's what Jill's talking about. Now that Chris and Sheva know his weakness, they head out to finish things once and for all. They manage to inject Wesker with the serum, and like I said, it messes him up real bad. He stumbles away, trying to make it to his plane. Chris and Sheva chase after him, barely managing to climb on board. Chris tells him, "This is the end of the line. You pushed everyone away with your toxic attitude. No one's left to help you now. Just give it up." Wesker, absolutely fuming, replies, "I don't need anyone. I have Ouroboros." Then he announces that in 5 minutes they'll reach the perfect altitude to release the virus into Earth's atmosphere. And of course, he snaps and attacks Chris and Sheva in full rage mode. They crash into an active volcano, because of course they do, and surprise, Wesker's not quite done yet. But in the end, Chris and Sheva finally managed to defeat the legendary Albert Wesker, though by now he's more revolting than iconic. Just when you think it's over, no. Why won't this guy just die? Chris and Sheva grab 2 RPGs and blast his face into oblivion, ending him once and for all. Albert, you were a terrible person, but I still kinda like you. Farewell. May your dreams be full of stars. And that's it, folks. Everything wraps up nicely. Resident Evil 5's story is officially done. Thanks so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and get ready. Resident Evil 6 is up next.
It's over.
Yes. Finally.
More and more, I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for. For a future without fear? Yeah, it's worth it.